Welcome. Let's talk about strategic alignment and procurement criteria. Yes, how are we going to put all this stuff in place? How are we going to get a vendor to really, we talked a little bit about this already. We're going to do a deeper dive into that. But first, a word of caution. I picked up this from an article recently, how to beat tech stack overload. What is that? Well, in the rush to improve go-to-market execution, is what we're all about, many businesses fall into a common trap, and that is solving inefficiencies with technology. We think that the medicine is going to cure our issues. More platforms, more licenses, more features really results in more complexity. What starts out as a well-intentioned attempt to gain efficiency often results in just the opposite. Increased silos, duplicate tools, messy integrations, and worst of all, burnout of our people. So how do we get by all this? There's a great 6-step process that was produced, and I'm going to share it with you here. The tech stack overload, or bloat as we call it, refers to a situation where businesses use an excessive number of software tools and technologies to manage its operations. This occurs when new solutions are continuously adopted. Somebody else comes, hey, this is great, whiz bang, let's get at it. Let's think about a process that we maybe can avoid that pitfalls of that issue. 6 steps. You can see them there. We're going to break them apart one by one. The first one being aligning around shared goals. We've talked about this, about trying to figure out what we're trying to do before we go do it. Well, there's a thing now in the tech audit world, and when we do tech audits, that we're really trying to get to a revenue operations assessment. That's the deeper level dive into tech audits. Tech audit says, what do we have on the table? The operations assessment of revenue is, are they actually providing revenue? Now, there's a thing called RevOps, and I put a little asterisk there because that sidebar talks about this whole ops movement. You can read it a little later if you like. But ops movement refers to this idea of a trend that's applying software engineering principles to areas beyond traditional software. Such as data pipelines, what we call data ops, and of course development activities, DevOps, and other specialized workflows like XOps. We're trying to streamline the processes. We're trying to make them work for us and not create more work for us, as it were. So what we have there is a little schematic that I laid out. That if you look over on the left side, the marketing operations, the sales operations, success operations. A lot of organizations are calling that success operations now because they're trying to get to the actual real important thing is how do we win? And it's all connected to finance, right? And we pour that into this magical target zone here, and it's supposed to yield a combination of data, technology, and processes. So let's get after that a little bit and see if we can get to that desired statement there of integrating desired outcomes with technology results in a powerful business ecosystem with desired financial results. That's it in a nutshell. We do all this so we make more money faster. That's a good way to put it. Huh? Number 2, we think about building go-to-market strategies around business objectives, not just about how it's going to actually make us do things every day, but how we're going to do things that are going to make money. We bring in some new terms, one called ABM, maybe you haven't heard of this, maybe you have, and ABX, account-based marketing and account-based experience. And if you're doing that in your organization, you're focused on targeting specific high-value accounts. And then you prioritize the tools that enable account-level tracking, purchase intent, why are they buying, what are they going to buy, that data that tells us that the customer is ripe, and cross-functional visibility. Well, there's tons of tools out there like Apollo and SalesLoft and so forth. And that's for the outbound part of the equation. We're trying to get people into the funnel. As we move through this course, we'll talk more and more about that, but I want you to consider the continuum below here, this box, where there's stage and description. The stage of our development, starting with a GTM strategy. What will that be? How do we identify the model that's going to help us execute that? How do we define its capabilities? And then this little chart will give you some schematic to think about how to do that. And carry it through, and it's a chance to kind of get in your mind what you want to get. And essentially, that's at the end there. Measure, success, and adjust using high-level attribution. Attribution meaning how did we get them here? What we attribute their reason for buying from us. The high attribution model allows us to track progress and really guide budget decisions because we're putting money where it counts, where we actually get something back. I also want to draw your attention to account-based marketing description down below in the box. When you look at this deck, you might want to take a look at that. ABX and ABM are very important. They deal with both the front end and the back end of the funnel, and that's the touch points all the way through the system. So let's move on to number 3, audit with purpose, not panic. Identify the factors, meaning the truisms, the things that really occur in driving dollars. That's using data to back up gut. That's it in a nutshell. And we think about these 3 things: the redundancies, the gaps, and the underuse. The redundancies, are teams using different tools for the same job? That's a redundancy. What about gaps? Are we missing a key platform like a CRM? I hope you're not missing a CRM. That's kind of a core. The data warehouse or a reporting tool are being used functionally and profitably and with a result that will actually lead us to a better outcome. And then finally, underuse, like we talked a couple of weeks ago about all software we use, and we tend to use less of it than we actually can. There's so much more there, and sometimes we just don't use it because we don't know. And then number 4 is that we prioritize integration over accumulation, the biggest tech stack issue. Tools that don't communicate seamlessly in real time. If the tools are supposed to integrate well, that is, they automatically share information and it's updated. We avoid tools that require manual intervention to share data. That's what it comes down to. So I put these 3 little figurines here: marketing automation, sales engagement, and ABX platform, and linking those activities to a CRM or a map. Now, CRM is something like Salesforce, which is customer relationship marketing. And then we talked about the other one, MAP, which is essentially a marketing automation platform, or like HubSpot. Now, number 5, winning hearts and minds to empower your people. We've had some discussions on this. This is kind of a summary. You can read this at your leisure if you had any. 5 ways to improve adoption: clearly communicate change and its benefits to employees. Ask employees about their needs. Consider the user experience for new solutions. By the way, on that number 2, asking, it's a good thing to do if you're a manager, just by walking around and say, hey, how's it going? We put that in place. Are you using it? And observe it. See if people are. Skip down to 4. To change management, take change management one step at a time. Change management does take time, and it takes people to kind of know it, absorb it, and then repeat it. So finally, we want to provide world-class IT support for your employees. We just can't afford anything but that. Finally, 6. This is important. Optimization, yes, improving things. I use this metaphor of fixing the plane while it's in flight. We don't stop and put in new engines. We don't stop and reskin the thing. We have to do it while we're flying. Yeah, I know it's crazy, but that is a great metaphor. And it's not a one and done situation. We don't just put the technology in place and move on. Optimization isn't a sign something's broken. It's a sign you're growing and you need to adapt. It's about progress, not perfection. Better is the enemy of good. That's what we think about a lot of times. Make it a continual data-driven process. Double down on what works. Cut out what doesn't. And stay open to new opportunities. That's the way you have to operate in today's business world. It's just things are happening too fast. Finally, we get to the real strategic fit framework concept here, and that is, understanding the business problem, the organizational readiness, and it would be the technical people. The people, the change management, the cultural fit, the cost of ownership beyond the initial purpose to the implementation cost, the ongoing maintenance, the opportunity cost, the exit cost. Finally, getting to the success metrics, defining them clearly, defining measurable outcomes before a vendor selection process begins. Remember, this deck is all about selecting vendor, getting the person to team with us. If you can't measure success, you can't evaluate vendor performance. Then we move on to this idea of the RFP process itself. And we've had some discussions about this, some great presentations, some great discussions from students, you guys that make this thing come alive. I just want to kind of reframe it here and look at these 3 phases. 1, the pre-RFP criteria, the RFP distribution, when we actually get it out to who we might deal with, and the deep dive evaluation. I'm going to spend a little time digging into this, but basically it results in critical RFP questions like, how does your platform handle data conflicts? That is the data conflicts that exist between integrated systems, the pieces and parts. It suggests that it offers the what's your advantage implementation timeline for organizations without complexity. That's what we said at the outset. We want to make this simple. Keep it simple, silly. How do you measure and report on the business impact of your platform and what happens to our data? We terminate the relationship, and don't think about that very much. Finally, evaluating the partnership. A true partnership, what is that? Well, when a client and vendor work together toward mutual goals. A partnership, I think, well, they're going to bail us out. Yeah, well, they're bailing us out because we're trying to get to that holy grail, that makes us all work together, make money, and be happy and celebrate. That's why that little confetti-ridden champagne party on there. Maybe that's not politically correct. But look, business ought to be fun, and it ought to be about celebration. And we look at those things that are going to deliver success, and that's the support philosophy. Does the vendor provide a reactive or proactive guidance? Innovation alignment. Is there really a product roadmap aligned with your strategic direction? And then the financial stability. You want to get a vendor that's going to be around in 5 years. They're going to be here for us in the long run. That's an indicator that they got their stuff together and they're going where we're going, that is to a bright future. Finally, cultural fit. This is one that can't be denied. Sometimes difficult to measure, and sometimes you just feel it. It's gut feel. Secret sauce of buy-in. I put this little box in here because I think it's important for you to think about this. I picked up this quote. I've seen technical platforms fail because of poor vendor relationships and technically adequate platform success because of exceptional partnership. What? Yes, that can really happen. Platforms are fundamentally about creating value through network effects. What are network effects? Well, that's when partnerships come together between customers and clients, blah blah blah, because we actually have a reason to help each other, and when we help each other, things happen for both of us. So strong technical platforms fail when they alienate key partners through unfavorable terms, sudden policy changes, or competitive obstacles. Think about Windows Phone. That goes way back, 2000, but what was it, 10 years or better? Yeah, gee, how time flies. Even though Windows Phone had the power of Microsoft and partnered with Nokia, a formidable world's largest manufacturer, it didn't happen. They frittered away $7 billion. A little clip down there. You want to take that and take a look at a video about that happened. We can learn a lot from failure, and you might want to take a look at that. Basically, users wouldn't buy Windows phones because they lacked essential apps. Developers wouldn't build for Windows Phone because there weren't enough users, and Microsoft couldn't attract users without apps. It's a repeat and rinse and repeat cycle. That's not a good thing. And essentially it leads to EOL, end of life. And this one was relatively, 10 years, but they spent $7 billion and didn't get a return. So that's what we think about when we're evaluating partnerships. They have to be synergistic. They really do have to work. A true partnership is when client and vendor work together toward mutual goals. So when we're building a tailored shortlist, now we're down to the RFP. We've gotten through that process. We're down to the last stages. We want 3 people. Yeah, we want 3 because that's the best. The internal stakeholder alignment begins this process, achieving internal consensus on certain things like business outcomes, capabilities needed, valuable but not required kinds of things, and then realistic budget, timeline, and staffing. That moves us up to the market landscape research, and that is the industry reports. You don't have to take this from anybody's by guess and by golly. We want to go to Gartner, go to Forrester, IDC, who provide unbiased comparisons. Peer networks are also helpful. You have people working other places, pick their brains, go have a drink, have a coffee, have whatever it is, and have these discussions, because you go to conventions with analysts and try to understand what's going on. And the conference intelligence and the analyst reports, they can give us a lot of information. I'm looking at them all the time, and I deliver a lot of them through this platform to you. That middle piece, the initial screening matrix. Now, I put up just a hypothetical matrix. But down below, you'll see you decide your decision criteria. And when we think about the structure of it, it's pretty simple to understand. We look at the weight that we're going to assign to the criteria, and then we're going to actually look at the three vendors and how they rank. Where are they going to lay out in that? Finally, we move to proof of concept design. Proof of concept for the three final vendors, that is three, because proof of concepts reveal the real world performance, don't they? Use real data. We mentioned that a week or so ago about the fact that we don't want to make this somebody else's industry or somebody else's business. We want to make it closest to ours as we can. Test edge cases. Edge cases. What happens when things are stressed? What goes wrong? Measure user experience. How do we actually how do the end users actually make this all happen? Do they not? Is the interface good or is the workflow poor? Evaluate support. How does the vendor respond to questions and issues during a trial? If you're doing a beta of some sort, this is a good time to evaluate the vendor. A very good time, because you're seeing them in the heat of battle. Finally, the three vendor rule. Why limit three vendors? Avoid decision fatigue. If you get more than three, it's hard to sort them all out. Who said what and why? Resource efficiency. You burn out all your resources trying to get 5, 6, 7 vendors. Get it down to three and then work from there. Finally, negotiation leverage. With three, you've got it. You've got good negotiation leverage. And choose vendors with different approaches. Don't choose vendors because you like their approach and you're going to measure what three of them do it. That's generally not going to get you the best thinking. It's going to get you the best thinking when you see the different ways in which they solve their problems. Now, bring it to life. Finally, some real people on the screen, not those cartoon characters. But the whole point is that's what we're trying to get at, building a tailored short list and bring it to life. So when we think about this, the summary, we think simply about don't fall into a common trap solving inefficiencies with technology. Innovations are attractive, often lure customers who focus on flash and not the cash. Tech must work to create value. Let your go-to-market strategy guide your tech decisions, not the other way around. Platforms are fundamentally about creating value through network effects and partnerships. Network effects, it's the commons. It's actually you do something for me, I do something for you, and only that can happen when we're both doing those things. Yeah, it's kind of nutty, but it is the way it works. And then finally, build a tailored shortlist and bring it to life. Hey, always a pleasure being with you. Next, we'll talk about architecting an integrated marketing technology stack. Thank you very much. See you soon. Bye.